Welcome back to ZNGP Today. Aprilia and Jorge Martín have confirmed the inevitable. The 2024 world champion will not take part in next week's Portuguese Grand Prix at Portimão. Still recovering from shoulder surgery after his Motegi crash, Martín's absence extends a season that has never found rhythm, a campaign more defined by hospital rooms and legal standoffs than podiums or pace. The defending champion's title defense is effectively over, even if his fight to fully heal isn't. And warned that the work is far from finished. Pecco Bagnaia left Sepang with mixed feelings, a sprint win and moments of genuine pace, but a puncture that cruelly ended a Grand Prix where he had been running strongly. Rather than dwell on the cruel ending, the two-time champion framed the weekend as forward progress, incremental steps on a bike that has frustrated him all year. If nothing else, Sepang delivered usable clues and a mood shift inside the Ducati box. After the high of a front-row start and near-podium heroics in Australia, Jack Miller's Sepang weekend was a reality check. The Pramac Yamaha rider battled tire spin and traction problems in Sunday's Malaysian MotoGP, ultimately settling for 14th after nursing a soft rear strategy to the flag. It was a lesson in damage limitation: keep the bike upright, gather useful data, and head to Portimão with clearer priorities. Yamaha's V4 project made its second public appearance in Sepang, but the progress was modest at best. Wildcard rider Augusto Fernandez labeled the weekend difficult, saying the prototype remains stuck on the same problems that plagued its Misano debut. Sepang returned more data and a clearer direction, but also a blunt verdict: the V4 needs hardware changes, not just trackside tweaks, if it's to close the gap to the frontrunners. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. The chain reaction began at turn 1 during the Japanese sprint. Contact between Martín and teammate Marco Bezzecchi sent both Aprilias tumbling. The impact displaced Martín's shoulder, forcing immediate surgery and an indefinite recovery window. It was his fourth major injury of the year, the latest in a sequence that shredded any chance of continuity. Aprilia test rider Lorenzo Savdori has since filled the seat, a stopgap now expected to continue into Portimão. Aprilia statement: Jorge continues to recover after surgery. His progress is positive, but we've agreed he will not race in Portugal to focus entirely on his rehabilitation. Martín's 2025 began disastrously. A testing crash just 13 laps into Sepang, followed by a training incident that ruled him out of the first 3 races. When he did finally return in Qatar, another accident ended in contact with Fabio Di Gianantonio, inflicting multiple new injuries. By the time he reappeared before the summer break, the defending champion had contested just a handful of rounds, 6 of 20 so far, with a best finish of 4th in Hungary. In a paddock that demands rhythm and resilience, Martín has had neither. Each restart has been followed by another fall. As if physical setbacks weren't enough, Martín also spent much of the season embroiled in a contractual storm. Between Qatar and Brno, he attempted to activate a release clause to exit Aprilia a year early, arguing unmet performance thresholds. The standoff was a sharp contrast to his euphoric 2024 title run, when his switch from Pramac Ducati to Aprilia seemed like the next logical leap. Martín's withdrawal means both reigning champions, 2024's Jorge Martín and 8-time titleholder Marc Marquez, will be missing from Portimão. Marquez remains sidelined with a shoulder injury from Indonesia. Their twin absences leave the grid strangely open, a stage where new names can seize the spotlight: Alex Marquez, Pedro Acosta, and the rejuvenated Joan Mir among them. The attrition among elite riders underscores just how brutal the 2025 season has been. Aprilia has not confirmed whether Martín will return for the Valencia finale or the post-race test. While he has resumed light training, the factory prefers a full recovery over rushed appearances. A symbolic homecoming at Valencia remains possible but uncertain. The team's stance: health first, suggests caution over sentiment. He's improving, but there's no reason to gamble the shoulder for one race. Jorge Martín's 2025 will be remembered not for title defenses, but for survival. 6 race starts, 4 major injuries, 1 legal battle, and a reminder that even world champions aren't immune to the sport's cruelty. From Sepang's preseason promise to Motegi's final blow, this was the year that never began. All that remains is recovery, and the hope that the real Martín, the relentless, fiery racer of 2024, returns reborn in 2026. The weekend began shakily. Bagnaia started Friday outside the Q2 places and was still wrestling stability on 1 GP25. The team dug in, though, and he rebounded dramatically, converting pace into pole and then dominating Saturday's sprint. That swing underlines how quickly fortunes can change when set up and feeling aligned. We definitely did a good job, but we weren't able to finish it off in the best possible way. A sprint win after a worrying Friday is not just a morale boost, it's proof the engineers and rider can find answers under pressure. Bagnaia led the early stages of the Grand Prix, yet his medium front tire option appeared to cost him a little outright drive. Alex Marquez swept past on the second lap, leaving Bagnaia to manage damage while trying to hunt back into contention. On a track where both launch and corner exits matter, the small tactical call on front compound can be decisive. Bagnaia's choice kept him in the fight, but arguably curbed his ability to sustain an attack. Cruel luck intervened on lap 12 when Bagnaia suffered a puncture. The issue forced him to nurse a dying rear tire and eventually retire on lap 18. What had been a controlled charge became a damage limitation exercise, and the podium faded with each compromised kilometer. After a season of ups and downs, random misfortune, rather than rider error or outright pace deficit, robbed Bagnaia of a chance to capitalize on a weekend that had shown clear signs of improvement. Bagnaia defended his front tire decision and stressed he was braking hard enough to fend off Pedro Acosta, evidence, he says, that the setup was workable. He also highlighted how he was trying to be perfect on rear management before the puncture intervened. Up until that point, I was trying to be perfect with the rear tire, and I was able to brake hard enough to defend myself from Acosta. When a rider can hold off a charging KTM and still manage tire life, it suggests baseline performance, even if the final result was stolen by luck. Bagnaia was careful not to exaggerate. Progress, he insisted, is incremental. Yet the weekend delivered clear evidence that some of the changes since Indonesia are transferable and beneficial. He left Sepang hopeful but measured about Portimão's notoriously demanding layout. This weekend has definitely been positive in several ways, and we'll try to continue the work we've done. Sepang was a microcosm of Bagnaia's 2025, flashes of excellence interrupted by bad fortune. Yet unlike some previous weekends, the factory rider and his crew extracted clear gains, a pole, a sprint win and race clues that matter. If Ducati can stabilize the GP25's temperament and avoid the freak errors of debris or punctures, those incremental positives could turn Sepang's near miss into the foundation for a stronger finish to the year. Miller's trouble began in warm-up, where an experiment with the medium rear tire confirmed what the team feared. It was too risky for race distance. The decision was made to revert to the soft, knowing the race would demand careful management rather than outright pace. I tried the medium, it ain't the way to go. So, back to the drawing board for the race. The soft's going to be the one, we're just going to have to manage it. That compromise set the tone. Play the long game with tire life, not the short one with attack. Miller began gently, protecting the soft rear while keeping tabs on rivals. His lap times were consistent for much of the distance, but the plan relied on having something left in the tank for the closing laps, something that never fully materialized. I was being very gentle at the beginning of the race to make sure I could get to the end and hopefully have something left in my pocket. On paper it was sensible. In practice the Yamaha's traction limitations meant the bank deposit for a late surge didn't grow as hoped. As the race entered its closing stages, Miller tried to push, only to find the bike spinning heavily on the long straights. To preserve the machine and his race record, he short-shifted through gears and pulled back the pace rather than risk a crash. When I tried to start pushing the last 3 laps, she was spinning an awful lot in the straights. I was having to short-shift in every gear, pretty much. So I opted to just bring it home. It's a pragmatic call, better points and feedback than another trip to the gravel. With Miller's home race at Portimão next, Pramac hopes the Portuguese roller coaster will provide a better hunting ground for their package, or at least an opportunity for stronger setup work and morale-boosting results. Miller leaves Sepang pragmatic, data gathered, damage limited, targets reset. We finished it out, built on hopefully some decent feedback, and fingers crossed we're more competitive in Portimão. After Sepang's tire lesson, Portimão becomes a test of adaptability, and a chance to turn cautious pace into positive momentum. Sepang was not the weekend Pramac hoped for, but it delivered clarity. Soft rears require careful management. Yamaha still lacks edge in traction and top speed, and pushing late can be a false economy. Miller's decision to preserve the bike and bring it home preserves both the season and useful technical takeaways. Now the focus turns to Portimão, and to turning Sepang's hard lessons into genuine gains. Fernandez arrived in Malaysia hoping the extra laps would show measurable gains after Misano. Instead, the team found themselves effectively resetting setup work and rediscovering the same baseline issues. The V4 isn't breaking new ground, it's matching where it left off, not leaping forward. Difficult weekend for us. We started the weekend worse than how we finished in Misano, so it felt like we had to start again discovering what we needed to find the base again. That admission underlines the project's early-stage reality, iterative data collection rather than performance payoffs. The stats show the bike is not yet competitive in core metrics, acceleration, top speed and sustained race pace, and that must be fixed at source. Teams discovered the V4's geometry and electronic responses differ markedly from the inline M1 baseline, forcing setup changes in centimeters rather than millimeters. That makes finding a reliable starting point slow and fragile. A single adjustment can swing the bike dramatically. When baseline numbers are unstable, riders can't extract consistent lap times, and engineers can't tune the bike toward raceable behavior. Fernandez was explicit about what comes next. Direction is known, but parts are required. Track tweaks and setup work have reached their limit. Meaningful gains will come when the factory supplies targeted components to address core deficits. So at least we have a direction to take, but we need the engineers now to work on new things and follow this direction. We need pieces, we need something else. That's the crux. Data can point to solutions, but without the physical parts to implement them, progress stalls. Qualifying last left Fernandez fighting through the field. Much of his race was a battle with Ducati test rider Michel Pirro before being overtaken late on. The riding was competent, but the machine's limitations prevented any real attack. The rider's performance reads as competent development work, extracting what he can while highlighting where the package fails. With the Valencia outing planned, Yamaha now has a short window to bring the right hardware and validate the direction Fernandez identified. The April tests and the season finale will be pivotal. Either the V4 begins to make the promised leap, or the project will remain a cautionary tale in transition. Valencia isn't just another wildcard, it's a make-or-measure moment for Yamaha's V4 ambitions. Sepang gave Yamaha clarity. The V4 is not hopeless, but it isn't ready either. Augusto Fernandez and the engineers have a plan and far more data than before, yet progress now hinges on parts, not opinions. If Yamaha can deliver the targeted hardware and validate the fixes at Valencia, the V4 could start to close the gap. If not, the prototype will remain a project in search of a breakthrough. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your MotoGP news update. And see you next time!